Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
On June 20th, 1979, 12-year-old Robin Christine Samshu and her friend Bridget would actually go to a local beach around Huntington Beach. While the two girls were at the beach, they would be approached by a wavy-haired man with a camera. And he would tell the girls that he was a photographer and he was collecting pictures of people for his portfolio. Robin and her friend Bridget would begin taking the photographer in different areas around the beach where they would begin posing, and this photographer would begin taking pictures. This would quickly get the attention of several adults, and they thought it was very strange and weird that a strange grown man was taking photos of two girls that were 12 years old. One of those people being Dana Crapo. After confronting the man would actually turn around and run away to where the girls would actually get on their bikes and go home to where Bridget lived with her family. Once they would arrive home, Bridget would tell her parents about their encounter with the photographer, so they would quickly call the police. And the police would come over, they would give a description of the man, and the police would return home. It's around this time that Robin Samshu would tell Bridget and her family that it was getting late and she was already late for ballet class. Bridget would tell her friend that she could use her bicycle to go over to ballet class on the premise that she would return it the next following day. But Bridget would get more bad news, as later on that afternoon, the family of Robin Samshu would actually call Bridget, wanting to know where their daughter was. It is there that Bridget would tell the family about the encounter of the photographer and would say that she had taken the bike going to ballet class, to which Robin's parents would inform them that the ballet class would actually call her and inform them that she never returned for class. Even more stranger, the same woman at the beach, Dana Crapo, would actually notice a car over on the Santa Anita Canyon Road. And walking towards the car would be the same photographer, completely covered in dirt. Now, if you're thinking to yourself that Dana would go home and call the police, you would be wrong. 5 days later, Dana would actually make a trip to the exact area where she had seen the man walking over to his car. She would walk over, and there she would find the remains of 12-year-old Robin Samshu. She had been beaten, raped, and unalived with a knife. And if you're thinking again that Dana would call the police to inform this, you would be wrong again. Unfortunately, the authorities would not be contacted until 12 days later, where it's there speculated that Dana would tell one of the co-workers that she worked at, and they would go over to the area, find the body, and they would quickly call the police. After they would find the body of Robin Samshu, they would then return to Bridget to inform them of her friend's demise. And they would ask permission for Bridget to give a sketch composite of the description of the man that they had found earlier. They would draw this sketch, and then they would put it into the files looking for the man that had unalived Robin Samshu. And luckily, it is Rodney Alcala's parole officer that would quickly find the sketch deposit and would give the police information of Rodney Alcala. They would arrest Rodney Alcala on July of 1979, and when the police would go to his home and do a search, they would find some keys in Seattle, Washington. It should also be noted that when they arrested Rodney Alcala this time, he would be held without bail. Now, they would find some keys in the apartment of Rodney Alcala to a storage shed in Seattle, Washington. And what they would find in this storage shed was very disturbing indeed. Where they would find in this storage shed a plethora of photographs, not only of young women, but children in very graphic, sexual, violent poses. It said that they would find over 1,000 different photos. They would also find a cloth bag, and when they would open it up, it was a complete collection of various earrings. This will play very important down the road. Now, Rodney Alcala would go to trial for the unaliving of Robin Samshu on July of 1980, where he was ultimately found guilty and he was sentenced to Smith. This decision would not be very long, as Rodney Alcala would appeal this decision, and it was overturned in 1984, where Rodney Alcala was claiming that it was an unfair judgment and said that in that trial, they were using his sexual crimes against Tali Shapiro. So they would have another trial hearing, and would exclude his previous sexual crimes. And in May of 1986, it would be virtually the same trial as it was originally, and they would come with an unanimous vote, the same verdict as before, and sentence Rodney Alcala to Smith in August. But Rodney Alcala wasn't done, as in 1992 he would do yet another petition, and they would overturn that verdict in 2003, claiming that some of the key witnesses were hypnotized by the police, which would be where we left off in the beginning of the video in 2010. Now, if you remember earlier, we had talked about where they had apprehended Rodney Alcala and found his storage locker in Seattle, Washington. And up there you can see 2 earrings that would be circled. This would be very imperative to the trials that had gone on. These particular earrings they would bring to the parents of Robin Samshu, and they would ask if they recognize these earrings. And the parents would actually say, yes, those are our daughter's earrings. Rodney Alcala would try to dispute this and say that those were his personal earrings and wore them on the show of The Dating Game. During this trial, Rodney Alcala would act as his own attorney. And during this trial, they would actually bring in Jed Mills, the actor who had actually was with Rodney Alcala on The Dating Game. And he would testify and say that he did not recognize the earrings on The Dating Game. And would even go any further and say during the time of the 70s, most men did not wear earrings like that, despite Rodney Alcala claiming he had worn those earrings on The Dating Game. It should also be noted that around this time, Rodney Alcala had released a book called You the Juror, which was just a self-titled book where he was claiming his innocence. He would also, as I said before, act as his own attorney, where in multiple times he would not only act as lawyer, but also question himself in different monologue type voices, and would refer to himself as Mr. Alcala. And he would claim that he was on Knott's Berry Farm during the time that Robin Samshu would actually go missing. But multiple key witnesses would discredit this claim. And there would be another thing that would discredit Rodney Alcala's claim. If you remember in our previous videos, we had talked about how police had been collecting samples at different crime scenes. Well, at this point in time in 2010, DNA had been more of a popular thing. And they would collect DNA from the earrings and the earring that was also Robin Samshu. Now, the DNA from the earrings would match Rodney Alcala. They would also match Robin Samshu, being that her parents identified them as her ring. They would also do DNA testing from those previous crime scenes. And they would find Rodney Alcala's DNA on the crime scene of victims Jill Barkham, Jill Parento, Charlotte Lamb, and Georgia Wixt. And they too would find Rodney Alcala guilty and for a third time sentence him to Smith. Now in 2010 and 2011, there were some unsolved cases that they wanted to extradite Rodney Alcala from California to New York, which would be the Crilly and Hoover murders. So in 2010, they would extradite Rodney Alcala from California to New York for the murders of Crilly and Hoover that he had committed in 1971 and 1977. Originally, Rodney Alcala would plead not guilty, but would quickly change his mind to guilty so he could actually be returned to California to attempt another plea deal. And the state of New York would charge Rodney Alcala with 25 years for those unalivings on top of his sentence for Smith. But the police were not done with Rodney Alcala, even though they got the verdict that they wanted, and would release 120 photographs that they had found in the storage shed in Seattle, Washington. As not only would they find photographs of Rodney Alcala's victims, there would be many more women that had not been identified. Most of which, when they would do investigations, would find out that these women had gone missing. And those would be the 120 photographs the police could release, as 900 of those photos were too graphic and sexual in nature.